Hello, my name is Daniel Ramos. I'm an accessories designer and a fashion artist. My work deals with many notions that come from social psychology, identity, and otherness in general. Today, I want to talk about empathy. Why empathy has become a very important element both to my personal life as it has become to my work. And it all began a couple of years ago, 2 to 3 years ago, with my Outrospection series, which is the one that is being exhibited or was exhibited at the Body exhibition. So to talk about that, first I want to talk about my Outrospection series, which it all started with my master's project. I was very interested in looking at the relationship between the body and the mind towards identity construction, and just doing a lot of research in social studies directed towards body and dress, and just overall identity. And I found a quote, which was the main base for the whole project, which goes, "Our bodies for others and for ourselves as others," which initially I started working with the first part of the phrase, and our bodies for others. This project, to begin, I started from there, and then throughout the research, I found this proposal called Outrospection from Roman Znarik, who is an academic from Oxford University, and what he proposes is that through empathy, or empathy being a media to make a big social impact, but I interpreted it a bit different, and what I did is I connected that to out-of-body experiences, and just as a way of putting yourself out there and getting to know the world through experiences and not necessarily through an introspection. So which, taking Descartes' condensation, that he proposes, "I think, therefore I am," I wanted to make a different perspective, which would be, "I experience, therefore I become." And it is by getting to know other cultures, or getting to know, going outside of yourself, that you can create your identity, and you can become whatever you want to be, not necessarily that you have to look inwards to understand who you are. So this is the project. This is the Outrospection collection, which is a series of 8 pieces. They're all made in porcelain, leather, brass, or gold-plated brass, and Colombian hand-turned wood. With this project, I wanted to create this, to materialize this metaphor of that projection of the mind coming out of the body, of this out-of-body experience, and this living outside of your own. The material also became quite as the main media to represent this, and it is because porcelain, I worked mainly with slip casting, and the porcelain, when it's in slip, it's in liquid, and it has the ability to become whatever you want it to be. But then once it's shaped, it becomes much more stronger. So I used that as a metaphor from this. We are born and we can become whatever we want to be. And then by the experiences, you shape the self until you start becoming much more solid in your own identity and in your own skin. What was interesting of this also is taking back the quote from "Our Bodies for Others." This was what was happening with this project. It's sort of a self-portrait because all of the pieces have been taken out of my own body. So I used body casting as a technique to get copies of my own body and make them to have them in porcelain, and then by these I'll go back. Sorry. By these structures, I would have them worn again by someone else. What's also interesting is that I am not the one who's wearing them. I am putting them on someone else. So I'm kind of living throughout other people's bodies and not necessarily my own. The pieces are all very stubborn and are very delicate. So it also forces the wearer to have specific ways of being or behaving. So that was also very interesting to me to see how somewhat the people or the wearer was adapting to me through the pieces. And that's where that second part of the quote comes, and it's and for ourselves as others. So I could also see myself through other people, and I could kind of reflect upon that. But then I wanted to keep exploring this. I worked with for the photos. I worked with contemporary dancer, and I've always been very interested in dance and just overall performance arts as a media. I'm not very good at dancing or like technical dance, so I wanted to see what other medias I could use to kind of do this out of body experience. So I started doing drag for last year. It started being mainly as a hobby and just as a self-expression type of thing. But the more I've been doing it, the more I've kind of seen many of my interests in my work in here. Initially, I didn't want to take myself too seriously and just kind of go with it. But then I realized that it requires so much of aesthetic and yeah, mostly aesthetic. And me, because of being an artist, I've started to realize that I take myself very seriously, not taking myself seriously. What was interesting is that I started going out in drag with a couple of friends of mine, like once a month, and we would go to this big club, and it started opening a whole different perspective to how I would read people and how people would read me. I started becoming much more sensitive towards a very big minority within this space, which is the trans community, which is a minority inside a minority, of which, although I was kind of aware of the trans community, I wasn't really, they were not visible to me until I started doing drag. So kind of by putting myself out in a different way, I started traveling through space and through people, through a whole different way. And that I started thinking that we are very disconnected from one another, and we are very disconnected from one another, and we need to find a way to kind of do those connections, as we were seeing just now, with the whole new digital era. Every time we are more not only disconnected from other people, but from ourselves as well. And this is a project that I did in collaboration with a Chilean artist. He was based in Santiago de Chile, and I was in Bogota. And the whole project we did was from a long distance. I would take pictures, and I would send them to him, and he would take pictures, and between the both of us, we would do the whole concept and the whole post-production. And this project talks about that digital area and that being now completely connected to our phones and to our tablets and to our PCs, and how that the social interactions behind are getting not necessarily completely disconnected, but are transforming. And the whole project was done through social media. So we collaborated through Instagram, Snapchat, and every now and then on Skype. So in this Anthropocene area, maybe this comes from a very romantic and maybe naive point of view, but what I think what's very much needed in a global scale, it's this embodied empathy, is to be more aware of our bodies and to be more aware of others people's, and also to be more aware of just any sort of issues, from political issues, social issues, cultural issues, because by that you become to get more sensible, and then start looking for more. I have a phrase which is against anything that makes us different and for everything that we share in common. So by that embodied empathy, we can try to make those connections much stronger. So this is a moment where we need like a call to action for us to be aware of the other and accept the other as part of us as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much.